One rainy night, a millionaire hears desperate knocking on his door. Before him, a distressed young woman holds a baby in her arms and begs, "Please let me be your daughter." Intrigued, he investigates the girl's past and discovers a secret that changes everything. What he finds could change his life forever. If this story interests you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Tell us which city you're watching us from, and we'll keep going. It was a cold winter morning in Boston, and the first rays of sunlight were barely breaking through the thick layer of clouds that hung over the city. Beneath the Charles River Bridge, a small figure stirred inside a makeshift shelter made of cardboard and old tarps. Mia, a 12-year-old girl with piercing green eyes and shaggy brown hair, was waking up for another day of survival on the streets. Her thin, calloused fingers adjusted the threadbare scarf around her neck, one of the few possessions she still had from her previous life. The fabric, though worn, still carried a faint scent of lavender that reminded her of better times. Mia didn't like to dwell too much on the past. Memories were like wounds that hadn't yet fully healed. The girl organized her small space with the precision of someone who knows the importance of maintaining some order in chaos. Each object had its specific place: an old backpack with a few belongings, a thin blanket folded carefully, and a small collection of books saved from trash cans, her only connection to the world of dreams and possibilities. Something felt different in the air that morning. Maybe it was the wind that was sharper than usual, or maybe it was that restlessness that sometimes came over her, as if fate were about to make one of its unexpected moves. Mia had learned to trust her instincts. They were what kept her alive on the streets of Boston. As he walked along the riverbank, his keen eyes scanned the surroundings for anything useful. It was his daily routine, searching through garbage, containers for food that was still usable, materials he could use or sell. Sometimes he found little treasures, a book in good condition, a piece of clothing that still fit, leftover food from restaurants that his hungry stomach couldn't resist. It too was when he reached the last container on the street, behind an Italian restaurant, that his life changed forever. The crying was so faint that at first he thought he imagined it, perhaps the wind howling between the buildings. But then he heard it again, clearer this time. His heart raced as he pushed aside some cardboard boxes and found a small, trembling package. There lay a baby, no more than a few weeks old. He was wrapped in damp rags, his face red from the cold and from crying. For a moment, Mia stood frozen, her brain struggling to process the scene before her eyes. How could anyone abandon such a small, helpless creature? Without a second thought, Mia took off her own scarf and wrapped it around the baby, pressing him against her chest to try to warm him. The little one stopped crying almost instantly, as if recognizing that he was safe now. His little blue eyes met Mia's, and in that moment, something changed inside her. A fierce determination took hold of her being. She would protect this child with her life. "Theo," he whispered, the name popping into his mind as if it had always been there, waiting to be said. "You'll be okay, Theo. I promise." But promises are easy to make and hard to keep, especially when you're a 12-year-old street girl. Mia knew she would need help, and fast. The baby needed proper food, diapers, warm clothes, medical care, all things she couldn't provide. It was then that he remembered the stories that circulated among the homeless about Alex Carter, the reclusive millionaire who lived in a mansion in Boston's most elegant neighborhood. They said that he gave generously to charities, but never appeared in public. Some said that he had lost his family in tragic circumstances and had since lived isolated from the world. As she cradled Theo in her arms, an idea began to form in Mia's mind. It was risky, perhaps even impossible, but she had no choice. If she wanted to save Theo, she would have to do something drastic. The Carter mansion was a few hours' walk away, and every minute was precious. Carefully, Mia arranged Theo in her coat, making a sort of improvised kangaroo, making sure he was well protected from the cold. She gathered her few belongings in, her old backpack, and for the first time in a long time, she felt something other than the constant fear that accompanied her. She felt hope. The sun was just beginning to rise over the horizon as Mia began her journey towards the Carter mansion. The streets were still deserted, and her footsteps echoed in the silence of the morning. Theo slept peacefully against her chest, oblivious to the fate that awaited them. The girl knew that she was about to change not only her own life, but also that of a man she had never met, and a baby that fate had placed in her path. Little did Mia know that her decision to save Theo would set off a chain of events that would reveal long-buried secrets and forever change the course of many lives. As she walked the icy streets of Boston, carrying her precious cargo, she was just a girl determined to do the right thing. But fate had much bigger plans for Mia, Theo, and Alex Carter. The Carter mansion stood imposingly at the end of Beacon Street, its grey stone walls a stark contrast to the meticulously manicured gardens. Even in the dead of winter, Mia paused before the wrought iron gates, her heart pounding so hard it felt like it was trying to burst out of her chest. Theo was beginning to stir, probably with hunger, and she knew she had to act quickly. The intercom was positioned at a height that she could barely reach. She stood on tiptoe and pressed the button, trying to control the tremor in her hands. A few seconds passed before a deep, formal voice answered, "Carter Manor, how can I help you?" I need to speak to Mr. Alex Carter," Mia replied, her voice firmer than she expected. "It's very important." There was a long pause before the voice returned. "Mr. Carter does not receive visitors. I suggest you contact his foundation if you require assistance." "Please," Mia insisted, feeling tears form in her eyes. "I have a baby with me. He needs urgent help. I can't wait for the foundation." The silence that followed seemed to last an eternity. Mia was about to give up when she noticed movement on the security cameras. Minutes later, a tall, elegant man in an impeccable suit approached the gates. It was Michael Reynolds, the butler who had served the Carter family for more than 3 decades. His experienced eyes quickly assessed the situation, a ragged girl holding a baby who clearly needed medical attention. Something in her determined expression made him make a decision that could cost him his job. "Come in," he said, triggering the gates to open. "But I must warn you, Mr. Carter is not at his best." Mia followed Michael through the sprawling gardens, taking in the snow-covered statues and frozen fountains. The mansion seemed even larger, up close, with its dozens of windows reflecting the dim light of the winter sun. Some were closed with heavy curtains, like eyes that refused to see the outside world. As they stepped inside, the warmth of the interior was an immediate relief. The entrance hall was majestic, with a double-height ceiling and a marble staircase that curved elegantly to the second floor. But there was something odd about the space, a sense of neglect, as if the life had long since drained from the place. "Wait here," Michael instructed, indicating a velvet sofa in the hall. "I'll inform Mr. Carter of your presence." As she waited, Mia looked at the photographs on the walls. In one, a younger Alex Carter smiled, next to a beautiful woman with golden hair. In her arms, she held a bouquet of flowers, and her belly was visibly pregnant. The photo seemed to have been taken in happier times, before the tragedy that everyone on the streets was talking about. Heavy footsteps on the stairs announced Alex Carter's arrival. Mia stood instinctively, holding Theo tighter. The man who came down the stairs looked like an older, more weathered version of the one in the photograph. His hair was grey at the temples, and deep lines of worry etched his face. "Who are you?" he asked, his voice hoarse as if it wasn't used often. His eyes fixed first on Mia, then on the small bundle in his arms. "My name is Mia, sir, and this is Theo," she replied, stepping forward. "I found him this morning, abandoned. He needs help, and I heard that you help people in need." Alex approached slowly, his eyes never leaving the baby. Something in his expression changed when Theo opened his eyes, those same blue eyes that had captured Mia's heart hours before. "Michael," Alex called, his voice shaking slightly, "call Dr. Matthews immediately, and bring something warm for our visitors." Mia watched in surprise as the man everyone had called a reclusive recluse changed before her eyes. There was a softness in his gaze as he moved closer, to examine the baby more closely. "How long has it been since you met him?" he asked, his professional tone masking a deeper emotion. "A few hours," Mia replied, explaining the circumstances under which she had found Theo. As she spoke, she noticed how Alex seemed increasingly affected by the story. Michael returned with a tray of hot chocolate and some cookies. "Dr. Matthews is on his way, sir. Shall I prepare one of the guest rooms?" Alex nodded absently, his eyes still fixed on Theo. "Yeah, and bring some of the stuff we keep in the attic, too." Mia sipped her hot chocolate, watching the interaction between the two men. There was something unspoken hanging in the air, as if her and Theo's presence had disturbed a delicate balance in the mansion. What she didn't know was that her arrival had awakened memories that Alex had struggled to keep buried for years. Memories of a pregnant wife, of dreams of fatherhood, of a tragedy that had turned him into the lonely man he was today. As they waited for the doctor, Alex sat in a nearby chair, his eyes flicking between Mia and Theo. The girl could tell he wanted to ask more questions, but something was holding him back. Maybe it was the fear of hearing the answers, or maybe it was the fear of getting emotionally involved after so long in isolation. What neither of them could have imagined at that moment was that fate had intertwined their lives in a way that would soon reveal itself to be much deeper and more complex than anyone could have suspected. The secrets kept within the walls of the Carter mansion were about to come to light, and the arrival of Mia and Theo would be just the beginning of a story that would change their lives forever. Dr. Matthews arrived at the mansion just as the sun was setting, carrying with him a worn leather briefcase and decades of medical experience. He was a middle-aged man with graying hair and kind eyes behind gold-rimmed glasses. He had been the Carter family's physician for years and was well aware of the ghosts that haunted the house. "Alex," he greeted with a nod, before turning his attention back to Theo and Mia. The doctor examined the baby with precise, gentle gestures, while asking the girl occasional questions about the condition he found her in. "The baby is dehydrated and slightly hypothermic," he finally diagnosed, "but there are no signs of more serious problems. With proper care, he should be fine." Turning to Alex, he added quietly, "We need to talk in private." Alex led the doctor to his office, leaving Mia in the care of Michael, who had prepared a room on the second floor. The room was larger than any place Mia had ever slept, with a four-poster bed and navy velvet curtains. In the office, Dr. Matthews sat in one of the leather chairs, watching Alex with concern. "That baby can't be more than 3 weeks old, Alex, and there's something about him that intrigues me." "What do you mean?" Alex asked, pouring himself a glass of water with shaking hands. "His eyes are identical to yours, and considering his age..." The doctor paused meaningfully. "Do you remember Evelyn Morrison?" The glass Alex was holding almost fell over. Evelyn, a name he had buried in the past, along with so many other painful memories. "How did you..." "She came to me about 8 months ago, Alex. She was pregnant and very ill. I tried to convince her to contact you, but she refused." The doctor adjusted his glasses uncomfortably. "I lost contact with her after that." Alex sank into his chair, feeling the weight of the revelations. Memories of Evelyn flooded his mind. Her bright smile, her determination, the way she'd ended things when she'd wanted something more serious. He'd been so focused on his career at the time, so determined not to get too emotionally involved. After the loss of his wife and daughter. Upstairs, Mia explored her new room with cautious curiosity. Michael had brought an antique crib down from the attic, which now occupied a corner of the room. The piece of furniture was immaculately kept, as if it had been waiting for Theo all this time. "This crib," Michael explained as he arranged clean sheets, "belonged to the daughter Mr. Carter lost. Anna would have been her name." His voice was thick with an old sadness. Mrs. Carter had complications during the birth. Neither of them survived. Mia absorbed the information in silence, beginning to better understand the melancholic atmosphere of the mansion. As she settled Theo into the crib, she noticed a small musical box on the shelf nearby. When she opened it, a soft melody filled the room. In the office, Alex was still processing Dr. Matthews' information. Do you think Theo could be my son?" "It would be an extraordinary coincidence if it weren't," the doctor replied. "But there is a way to confirm it. A DNA test can..." "No," Alex interrupted sharply. "It doesn't matter. That girl brought him here for a reason. They need help, and I can't turn my back." Dr. Matthews smiled slightly. "Maybe it's fate giving you a second chance, Alex. That little girl needs care too. She's malnourished and exhausted." Alex nodded thoughtfully. "I'll take care of both of them, Matthews. But I need your discretion. If this gets out..." "Your secrets are safe with me, as they always have been," the doctor assured him, standing up. "But let me give you some advice. Don't let the fear of the past keep you from embracing this opportunity. Those children may be just what you need to start living again." When the doctor left, Alex walked slowly up the stairs, his steps heavy with the weight of the revelations. He stopped at the door to the room where Mia and Theo were staying. Watching the scene through the crack, the girl humming softly to the baby, lulled by the music of the musical box that his late wife loved so much. The familiar melody made her heart ache. For years, she had kept that musical box closed, unable to bear the memories it evoked. Now in Mia's hands, the music no longer seemed so painful. At that moment, Alex made a decision that would change not only his life, but the lives of everyone in that house. He didn't know yet the challenges that lay ahead, the people from his past who would reappear, the secrets that were yet to come to light. But for the first time in years, he felt like he was doing the right thing. Night was falling over Boston, shrouding the Carter mansion in deep shadow, but inside that room, lulled by the ancient melody and the warmth of a new beginning, a fragment of hope began to blossom. It was only the beginning of a journey that would test the limits of love, courage, and redemption. The first week at the Carter mansion passed like a hazy dream for Mia. After years on the streets, it was strange to sleep in a soft bed, have regular meals and clean clothes. Michael had provided a full wardrobe for her and Theo, though Mia still kept her old scarf as a talisman from her former life. Alex, meanwhile, began to slowly emerge from his seclusion. Every morning he showed up at breakfast. Though he spent more time observing than talking, his eyes followed Mia and Theo with a mixture of fascination and apprehension, as if he feared they might disappear at any moment. One particularly cold morning, while Mia was feeding Theo in the library, Alex quietly entered and sat in her favorite chair. "You have a special way with him," he commented, breaking the usual silence. Mia looked up, surprised by the initiative. "I learned to take care of the young in the orph..." She stopped abruptly, biting her lip. It was the first time she had let slip anything about her past. Alex leaned forward slightly, his interest piqued. "You've been to an orphanage?" "For a while," she replied, cradling Theo in her arms. "But I don't like to talk about it." The silence that followed was broken by Michael, who entered carrying a tray of tea and biscuits. "Sir," he said with characteristic formality, "Mrs. Sullivan is on the telephone. She insists on speaking to you." Alex's face paled visibly. "Margot, how did she..." "Apparently, Dr. Matthews mentioned your recent visit during a consultation. I'm with her," Michael explained, his expression revealing concern. Alex stood up abruptly, his hands shaking slightly. "Take care of the children, Michael. I need to sort this out." As Alex hurried out, Mia watched the meaningful look exchanged between him and Michael. There was more to the story than she could comprehend. In the office, Alex stared at the phone, as if it were a snake about to strike. Finally, he took a deep breath and answered, "Margot." "Alex Carter." The voice on the other end was firm but thick with emotion. "After all these years, you still managed to surprise me. An abandoned baby? And a street child? What's going on?" "It's not what you think, Margot," he tried to explain but was interrupted. "No, so tell me, Alex, why was Dr. Matthews so nervous when he mentioned your visit? Why is Michael buying diapers and baby clothes? And most importantly, why are you keeping this secret from me?" Alex closed his eyes, feeling the weight of Margot's words. How could he explain something that even he didn't fully understand? How could he tell her about his suspicions about Theo, about the strange feeling of connection he was developing with those children? "Come and have dinner with us tonight," he heard himself saying. "I need to show you something." In the library, Mia tried to process the fragments of conversation she had overheard. Who was Margot Sullivan? Why had her call upset Alex so much? And why did Michael seem so worried? "Michael," she called, as the butler returned to collect the tray. "Who is Mrs. Sullivan?" The old servant paused for a moment, considering his answer. "Mrs. Sullivan is a very important person from Mr. Carter's past. She was the mother of someone he knew a long time ago." Before Mia could ask any more questions, footsteps sounded in the hallway. Alex returned, his face a mask of concern. "We're having a guest for dinner," he announced. "Someone who needs to meet you." The rest of the day passed in a whirlwind of preparations. Michael moved around the mansion with extraordinary efficiency, supervising the cleaning, selecting the best dishes, planning the menu. Mia watched it all with growing anticipation, sensing that something important was about to happen. As dusk approached, Alex became increasingly restless. Several times Mia caught him looking at Theo with an indescribable expression, as if he were trying to solve a complex puzzle. At 7 o'clock sharp, the doorbell rang. Michael opened the door to an elegant, silver-haired lady with a proud posture. Her deep blue eyes scanned the room until they found Alex. "Well," Margot Sullivan said, removing her gloves with precise gestures, "I'm here. Now show me what's so important that it couldn't be said over the phone." The air in the mansion suddenly grew thicker, thick with anticipation and secrets about to be revealed. Mia, watching from the stairs with Theo in her arms, felt a shiver run down her spine. Something told her that tonight would change everything, and she had no idea how right she was. Dinner was served in the main dining room, a stately room that had rarely been used since Alex's isolation. The soft glow of silver candlesticks illuminated the mahogany table, where the Carter family's finest china had been meticulously arranged by Michael. Margot Sullivan sat with the elegance of someone accustomed to refined surroundings, her attentive eyes studying every detail of the scene before her. Mia, sitting opposite, felt out of place despite the new clothes Michael had provided. Theo slept peacefully in a portable crib next to the table. "So," Margot began, after Michael had served the appetizer, "are you going to tell me the full story, Alex?" Alex adjusted his napkin on his lap, visibly tense. "Margot, first of all, I need you to understand that I'm still processing all of this myself." "Processing what, exactly?" Margot's voice was controlled, but her eyes never left Alex's. "Theo," he replied, casting a meaningful glance at the crib. "Dr. Matthews believes, well, there is evidence that he may be my son, with Evelyn." The sound of a fork dropping echoed through the room. Margot had visibly paled. "Evelyn? My Evelyn?" Mia watched the interaction with growing interest, the pieces of the puzzle beginning to fit together in her mind. So Margot was Evelyn's mother, the woman Alex had mentioned in his conversations with the doctor. "Yes," Alex confirmed, his voice low. "She came to Dr. Matthews a few months ago. She was pregnant and sick. I didn't know, Margot. I swear I didn't know." "Of course you didn't know," Margot replied bitterly. "You were too busy hiding from the world in this mansion to notice how that my daughter needed you." The silence that followed was heavy as lead. Michael discreetly removed the barely touched plates from the entree. "Where is she now?" Margot asked, though her tone suggested she already knew the answer. "Nobody knows," Mia replied before Alex could speak. "I found Theo abandoned in a shipping container. He was alone, shivering from the cold." Margot turned her attention to Mia, as if seeing her properly for the first time. "And you are?" "Mia," the girl replied, holding the lady's gaze. "I found him and brought him here because I knew he needed help." "A child taking care of another child," Margot murmured, her expression softening slightly. "And how did you know about Alex?" "People on the street talk about him," Mia explained, "about how he helps those in need, even though he never appears in public." At that moment, Theo woke up, his small sounds attracting everyone's attention. Margot stood up and walked to the crib, her steps hesitant. When she looked at the baby, her hands covered his mouth, stifling a sob. "Her eyes," she whispered. "They're her eyes, and yours, Alex." Alex also approached, stopping next to Margot. "I know. It was the first thing I noticed when I saw him." "And you're sure?" Margot asked, her voice shaking slightly. "Absolutely sure he is." "We'll do the DNA test," Alex replied, "but in my heart I already know the answer." Mia watched the scene with a tightness in her chest. Suddenly she felt like an intruder, witnessing a moment that was too intimate, too full of history. "And the girl?" Margot asked, turning to look at Mia. "What is her role in all this?" "She stays," Alex replied with surprising firmness. "Mia saved Theo. She brought him to me. And more than that." He paused, searching for the right words. "She made me realize that I can't keep living as a ghost in this house." Margot studied Alex for a long moment before speaking again. "You know this changes everything, don't you? If Theo really is Evelyn's son, he's my grandson, and I have rights." "I know," Alex replied. "I'm not trying to deny it, but maybe we can find a middle ground, a way to make this work for all of us." The rest of the dinner was less tense, but still full of unspoken emotions. Margot asked Mia several questions about her life, her origins, how she had survived on the streets. The girl answered cautiously, avoiding revealing too much about her past. As the evening drew to a close, Margot stood at the door of the mansion, looking at Alex with a complex expression. "I'll give you some time to sort this out, but I want to be a part of my grandson Alex's life, and I want to help him find Evelyn. She might need us." After Margot left, Alex stood in the foyer for a long time, staring into space. Mia, who was watching from the stairs, realized that something fundamental had changed that night. The Carter mansion, which had been a mausoleum of painful memories for so long, was beginning to awaken to a new reality. And that reality included not only Theo, but also herself, a street girl who by a whim of fate had become part of a story much bigger than she could have imagined. The morning after dinner with Margot, the Carter mansion looked different. The heavy air of secrecy had been partially lifted, but new tensions were beginning to emerge. Alex spent hours in his office, making phone calls and looking through old documents, while Michael coordinated a team of private investigators to try to locate Evelyn. Mia, sitting in the conservatory with Theo, watched the unusual activity through the glass windows. The baby was playing with a new rattle, a gift from Margot, which had been delivered earlier in the day by a messenger, along with a letter addressed to Alex. "Miss Mia," Michael approached silently, as he always did. "Mr. Carter would like to speak with you in his office." Mia's heart raced. In her experience, formal office conversations rarely brought good news. Picking up Theo, she followed Michael through the halls of the mansion. Alex's office was an imposing space, with floor-to-ceiling bookshelves and a large solid wood desk. Behind it, Alex looked more tired than usual, with deep circles under his eyes. "Have a seat, Mia." He gestured to one of the leather armchairs. "We need to talk about some important things." Mia settled into the armchair, arranging Theo on her lap. The baby, sensing the tension in the room, clung to the old scarf she still had with her. "The investigators have started looking for Evelyn," Alex began, "but during their preliminary investigation, they found something intriguing." He paused, studying Mia's face. "They can't find any record of her in any of the orphanages in Boston." Mia felt her stomach sink. "Maybe they didn't look hard enough," she muttered, avoiding Alex's gaze. "Or maybe," Alex continued softly, "you're not telling us the whole truth about your past." The silence that followed was interrupted only by the soft sounds Theo made playing with the scarf. Mia squeezed the fabric between her fingers, a gesture that did not go unnoticed by Alex. "That scarf," he observed, "you never take it off, even though you have new clothes now. Why?" Mia hesitated, her fingers tracing the familiar pattern on the fabric. "It was my mother's," she finally replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "It's the only thing I have of hers." "And where is your mother now?" She left me," Mia replied, fighting back the tears that threatened to fall. "At a train station in Chicago 2 years ago. She said she was going to get us something to eat and never came back." Alex leaned forward, his expression softening. "Why didn't you tell us this before?" "Because..." Mia took a deep breath, the words coming out in a rush. "Because every time I tell the truth, people want to send me back to Chicago. They say I need to be in the system there, that that's where I belong. But I can't go back. I can't. Why not? Because she might come back, Mia admitted, her voice breaking. She might go back to the station, and if I'm not there. Alex stood up from his chair and walked to the window, his back to Mia as he processed the information. When he turned back around, his expression was determined. Mia, he said softly, you know she's not coming back, don't you? The tears that Mia had held back for so long finally began to fall. Theo, sensing her anguish, began to whimper. What's going to happen to me now? She asked, rocking Theo to calm him. Are you going to send me away? Alex knelt down beside the chair, bringing himself to eye level with Mia. No, he said firmly. You're not going anywhere. But we need to get this sorted out. Make things right. I'm going to file for temporary custody, he explained. Margot has agreed to support me in this. With our influence and resources, we can make sure you stay here, legally. Mia looked at him suspiciously. Why? Why do you care? Because you saved Theo, Alex replied. But more than that, because you remind me of someone I used to be, someone who believed in second chances. At that moment, Michael walked into the office with a grave expression. Sir, forgive the interruption, but there is something you need to see immediately. Alex stood up, taking the envelope Michael held out to him. As he opened it, his hands began to shake. What's wrong? Mia asked, noticing the change in his expression. It's about Evelyn, he replied, his voice hoarse. They found her. The air in the office suddenly became heavy. Theo, as if sensing the tension, began to cry harder. Mia hugged him, protectively as she watched Alex read and reread the document in his hands. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across the office windows, creating intricate patterns on the Persian carpet. Somehow Mia knew this was just the beginning of a story far more complicated than either of them could have imagined. The shadows of the past were about to catch up with them, and nothing would ever be the same in the Carter mansion. The days that followed the discovery of Evelyn's whereabouts were a whirlwind of emotion and preparation at the Carter mansion. Alex alternated between moments of intense activity and long periods of quiet contemplation, while Margot practically moved into one of the guest rooms, determined to be there when her daughter returned. Mia watched everything with a mixture of fascination and apprehension. Although Alex had assured her that she would remain in the mansion, the girl could not help but fear that Evelyn's arrival would change everything. After all, if Theo really was Evelyn and Alex's son, what would his place be in this new family setup? It was a rainy Thursday afternoon when the Carter family's black car finally pulled into the mansion's gates, carrying Evelyn. Mia was in the library with Theo when she heard the commotion downstairs. Instinctively, she hugged the baby tighter. It's going to be okay, she whispered, more to herself than to Theo. We'll be okay. Footsteps in the hallway announced Michael's arrival. Miss Mia, he said with his usual formality, though his voice betrayed a slight strain. Mr. Carter requests your presence in the sitting room. With young Theo, please. Her heart pounding, Mia followed Michael downstairs. The scene she found in the living room was like a frozen frame in time. Alex stood by the fireplace, his face a mask of suppressed emotion. Margot sat on the couch, holding the hand of a fragile young woman who could only be Evelyn. When Mia walked in with Theo, all eyes turned to her. The silence that followed was deafening. Evelyn was the first to move. With hesitant steps, she approached Mia, her eyes fixed on Theo. "My baby," she whispered, holding out her trembling hands. Mia felt a protective instinct take hold of her. She took a step back, hugging Theo to her chest. "He's okay," she said, her voice firmer than she expected. "I found him and took care of him." Alex intervened, his voice soft but authoritative. "Mia, please. Evelyn is Theo's mother." Reluctantly, Mia allowed Evelyn to hold the baby. Tears streamed freely down the young woman's face as she held her son close for the first time in weeks. "I'm so sorry," Evelyn sobbed, rocking Theo gently. "I had no choice. I was so sick, so scared." Margot stepped closer, wrapping her daughter and grandson in a protective hug. "It's okay now, honey, you're home." Mia watched the scene with a lump in her throat. She should be happy for Theo that he had found his true family, so why did she feel like she was losing something precious? Alex must have noticed her expression, because he walked over and placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. "Mia," he said quietly, "you're still part of this family. Nothing will change that." Alex's words brought some small comfort, but doubts lingered. In the days that followed, the Carter mansion changed. Evelyn was placed in one of the best rooms, next to Theo's makeshift nursery. Doctors came and went, monitoring the young. Mother's fragile health. Mia found herself increasingly on the fringes of the new family dynamic. Although Alex and even Margot made efforts to include her, it was clear that their main focus was Evelyn and Theo's well-being. One night, unable to sleep, Mia wandered the halls of the mansion until she reached the library. To her surprise, she found Evelyn sitting in one of the armchairs, leafing through an old photo album. "Sorry," Mia muttered, turning to leave. "I didn't know anyone was here." "Wait," Evelyn's voice stopped her. "Please stay. I'd like to talk to you." Hesitantly, Mia approached. Evelyn indicated the armchair next to her, inviting her to sit. "You must hate me," Evelyn said softly, closing the photo album. "I don't hate you," Mia replied, surprised by Evelyn's bluntness. I don't understand." Evelyn sighed deeply. "I don't even fully understand. When I found out I was pregnant, I was terrified. Alex and our relationship had been over for months. I was alone, broke, and then I got sick." She paused, fighting back tears. "I thought I was going to die, and I didn't want my baby to die with me on the streets." "So you left him," Mia concluded. "Yes," Evelyn nodded, guilt evident in her voice. "It was the hardest thing I've ever done, but I hoped someone would find him, that he would have a chance." "And someone found it," Mia said quietly. "I found it." Evelyn reached out, gently touching Mia's arm. "And I will be forever grateful for that. You saved my son, Mia. You brought him home." Evelyn's words triggered something inside Mia. All the emotions she had been suppressing for the past few weeks, fear, confusion, jealousy, came flooding back at once. "But what now?" Mia asked, her voice shaking. "What is my place here?" Evelyn surprised her by pulling her into a tight hug. "You belong here with all of us. You're part of this family now, Mia. Theo will need a big sister to look after him, to teach him the things only a sister can teach." Evelyn's words, so sincere and unexpected, finally broke down the barriers Mia had built. For the first time since arriving at the Carter mansion, she allowed herself to truly cry, releasing all the fear and uncertainty she had been carrying. As the two women held each other in the quiet library, a new understanding began to form. The family that was being formed in the Carter mansion was complex, imperfect, and full of painful history. But it was also full of possibilities, of second chances, and of a love that transcended blood ties. Outside the library, Alex watched. The scene silently, a small smile on his lips. Perhaps, he thought, there was hope for them all after all. The weeks that followed brought a new routine to the Carter mansion. Evelyn, still frail but improving every day, gradually assumed her role as mother, with Mia always nearby, ready to help. The relationship between the two, initially tense, gradually transformed into an unexpected partnership. Alex, meanwhile, was facing his own challenges. Fatherhood, something he had buried along with his hopes for so long, now demanded his full attention. He found himself waking in the middle of the night at the slightest sound coming from Theo's room, anxious to make sure everything was okay. On a sunny Saturday morning, the family gathered in the garden for a picnic. It was the first time Evelyn had ventured out of the mansion since her arrival. Mia helped spread a large blanket on the grass, while Michael arranged a variety of snacks and drinks. "It's a beautiful day," Margot commented, helping Evelyn settle into a comfortable position. "It's good for all of us to get some fresh air." Alex, with Theo in his arms, looked more relaxed than Mia had ever seen him. "I agree," he said, smiling at his son. "I think we all needed that." Mia watched the scene with a mixture of joy and melancholy. It was almost like the family she had always dreamed of having. Almost. "What are you thinking about?" Evelyn asked, noticing Mia's distant expression. "Nothing much," Mia replied, forcing a smile. "Just enjoying the moment." But Evelyn wasn't fooled. With a gentle gesture, she took Mia's hand. "You know, when I was away," she began, choosing her words carefully, "I dreamed of moments like this. Our family, a home. And in all those dreams, there was a brave little girl who saved my son. That little girl was you, Mia." Evelyn's words took Mia by surprise. "But you didn't even know me," she muttered. "No," Evelyn agreed, "but I knew someone special would find Theo. And you are more special than I could have imagined." Alex, who had silently approached, added, "Evelyn is right, Mia. You not only saved Theo, but you saved us as well. You brought life back into this house." Mia felt tears form in her eyes, but this time they were tears of joy. You really want me here?" "More than that," Alex said, exchanging a meaningful look with Evelyn. "We want you to officially be part of this family. We'd like to adopt you, Mia." The world seemed to freeze for a moment. Mia looked from Alex to Evelyn, then to Margot, who was smiling encouragingly. Adopt me?" Evelyn nodded, her eyes shining. "Yes, dear. We want you to be a Carter, legally and in every way. Theo's sister, our daughter." The emotion Mia felt at that moment was indescribable. It was as if all the pieces of a puzzle had finally fit together. She threw herself into Evelyn's arms, sobbing with joy. "Yes," she managed to say through her tears, "yes, I want to be part of this family." The rest of the afternoon passed like a dream. As they ate, laughed, and made plans for the future, Mia felt for the first time in years that she was truly home. Later, as the sun began to set, turning the sky golden and pink, Mia found a moment of stillness. Sitting by the small lake on Lace, the property, she pulled her old scarf from her pocket. The fabric, though worn, still held memories of her birth mother. "Can I join you?" Alex's voice surprised her. Mia nodded, and he sat down beside her on the grass. "That scarf," Alex began, "softly, means a lot to you, doesn't it?" "That's the only thing I have of her," Mia replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "Sometimes I'm afraid I'll forget her face." Alex was silent for a moment, staring out at the lake. "You know, Mia," he finally said, "having a new family doesn't mean forgetting your old one. Your mother will always be a part of you, just as Anna and my late wife will always be a part of me." Mia looked at him in surprise. It was the first time Alex had mentioned his lost family so openly. "Love," he continued, "is not finite. We don't have to choose between loving the past or the present. We can honor our memories and still embrace new joys." Alex's words touched Mia deeply. She looked down at the scarf in her hands, and then, in a symbolic gesture, tied it to a nearby branch, letting it sway gently in the evening breeze. "It's time to make new memories," she said, a genuine smile lighting up her face. Alex put an arm around Mia's shoulders, and together father and daughter watched the sun set, marking the end of one chapter and the beginning of another in the Carter family story. Back at the mansion, Evelyn was waiting for them on the porch with Theo in her arms. Margot was at her side, and even Michael seemed to have momentarily abandoned his formal posture, a slight smile on his lips. As they walked back home, Mia felt a peace she had never experienced before. The future, which had once seemed so uncertain and scary, was now full of promise and possibility. The Carter mansion, once a symbol of loss and isolation, now pulsed with new life. And at the center of it all was Mia, the girl who had found not just a home but a true family. Autumn had arrived in Boston, painting the trees on the Carter estate in shades of red, orange, and gold. With it came a series of changes for the newly formed family. The adoption process for Mia was underway, with Alex and Evelyn working tirelessly to overcome the bureaucratic hurdles. One cool October morning, Mia came down for breakfast and found an envelope on her place at the table. Curious, she opened it, her eyes widening as she read the contents. Is this a school registration?" she asked, looking at Alex and Evelyn, who were watching her with eager smiles. Yes, Alex replied, placing a cup of hot chocolate in front of her. We think it's time for you to go back to school. Academy Hill is one of the best schools in the city. Mia felt a mix of emotions. On one hand, the idea of going back to school, of having a normal life like any other child was exciting. On the other hand, the fear of the unknown, of not fitting in, terrified her. Evelyn, sensing her hesitation, sat down next to her. We know it's a big step, honey, but we believe in you, and we'll be here to support you every step of the way. Mia nodded slowly, a small smile forming on her lips. Thank you, I'll try my best. The next few days were a whirlwind of preparations, shopping for school supplies, new uniforms, and long conversations about what to expect. Mia spent hours in the library, reviewing textbooks, determined not to fall behind the other students. The night before her first day of school, Mia couldn't sleep. Restless, she went down to the kitchen to get a glass of water. To her surprise, she found Michael there, setting out a tray with tea and cookies. "Ah, Miss Mia," he said, his expression softening at the sight of her. "Can't sleep?" Mia shook her head. "I'm nervous about tomorrow," she admitted. Michael pointed to a chair, inviting her to sit down. As he poured her a cup of tea, he began to speak. "You know, Miss Mia, I've worked for the Carter family for over 4 decades. I've seen a lot of change, a lot of joy and sadness, but I've never seen this house as alive as it is now, since you arrived." Mia looked at him, surprised at the rare display of emotion from the ever-formal butler. "What I mean," Michael continued, "is that you've faced much harder things than the first day of school. You're strong, smart, and brave. I'm sure you'll do great." Michael's words brought tears to Mia's eyes. Impulsively, she stood up and hugged him. For a moment, the butler stood stiffly in surprise, but soon returned the embrace with fatherly affection. The next morning, the whole family gathered to take Mia to school. Alex insisted on driving himself, with Evelyn in the passenger seat and Margot in the back holding Theo. Mia sat next to her grandmother, nervously clutching the strap of her new backpack. As they reached the gates of Academy Hill, Mia felt her stomach tighten. The imposing red brick building, with its manicured gardens and students in impeccable uniforms, seemed like a completely different world to what she was used to. Alex parked the car and turned to her with an encouraging smile. "Ready, champ?" Mia took a deep breath and nodded. "I guess so." As they walked to the school entrance, Mia felt all the curious looks from the other students and their parents. She knew she was a new addition, the Carter family's new adopted daughter. At the classroom door, Evelyn knelt down to Mia's eye level. "Remember," she said softly, "you're amazing just the way you are. You don't have to prove anything to anyone." Mia hugged Evelyn, then Alex, Margot, and even little Theo. With a final wave, she walked into the room, ready to face this new chapter in her life. The day passed in a blur. New subjects, new faces, new rules to learn. Mia struggled to keep up, taking meticulous notes and raising her hand to answer whenever she knew the answer. During recess, while the other students gathered in family groups, Mia found a quiet corner in the courtyard. It was there that a girl with curly hair and a friendly smile approached her. "Hi, you're the new one, aren't you?" "I'm Olivia," she introduced herself, sitting down next to Mia. "Hi," Mia replied shyly. "I'm Mia." "So, is it true that you live in the Carter mansion?" Olivia asked, her eyes shining with curiosity. Mia hesitated for a moment but decided to be honest. "Yes, it's true. They're adopting me." To her surprise, Olivia didn't react with astonishment or envy as Mia had feared. Instead, she smiled genuinely. "That's great. This must be a big change for you. If you need help adjusting or just want to talk, I'm here for you." For the first time that day, Mia felt truly relaxed. "Thank you, Olivia. That means a lot." When the bell rang announcing the end of school, Mia walked out to find the entire Carter family waiting for her. Theo, in Margot's arms, let out a happy little cry when he saw her. "So," Alex asked anxiously, "how was it?" Mia looked at her new family, then at Olivia, who was waving from across the courtyard and finally back at the Carters. A genuine smile lit up her face. It was good, she replied. I think I'm going to like it here. As they got into the car to head home, Mia felt a surge of gratitude. Her life had changed dramatically in the past few months, from a lonely existence on the streets to a loving family and opportunities she never imagined she had. The road ahead would still be full of challenges, she knew. There was much to learn, much to overcome. But for the first time in a long time, Mia was truly hopeful about the future. The Carter mansion, once a symbol of isolation and sadness, was now a beacon of hope and new beginnings. And Mia, the girl who once had nothing but an old scarf, and her courage now had a whole world of possibilities before her. Winter had arrived in Boston, blanketing the city in a white blanket of snow. At the Carter mansion, preparations for Christmas were in full swing. It was the first time in years that the house was filled with festive decorations and the aroma of freshly baked cookies. Mia, now fully settled into her new school and family life, was excited about the prospect of her first real Christmas. She and Olivia, who had become her best friend, spent hours planning the party and picking out presents for everyone. On a cold December afternoon, while helping Michael decorate the Christmas tree in the main hall, Mia noticed Alex standing in the doorway, watching the scene with an enigmatic expression. "Is everything okay, Dad?" she asked, still getting used to using the word Dad. Alex smiled, but there was a shadow in his eyes. "Yes, dear, just remembering." Before Mia could ask more, the sound of the doorbell echoed through the mansion. Michael went to answer it, returning moments later with a worried expression. "Sir," he said to Alex, "there's a lady at the door. She says she's Mia's mother." The world seemed to freeze. Mia felt as if the ground had disappeared beneath her feet. Alex immediately stepped up beside her, a protective hand on her shoulder. "Mia," he said softly, "you don't have to see her if you don't want to." But Mia knew she had to face it. Heart pounding, she nodded. "No, I want to see." Alex led her into the foyer, where a tired-looking woman in worn clothes was waiting. Her eyes, the same shade of green as Mia's, filled with tears when she saw the girl. "Mia," she whispered, stepping forward. "My girl." Mia stood frozen, a whirlwind of emotions overwhelming her. Anger, fear, confusion, and a hint of love she thought she had buried long ago. "Why are you here?" Mia managed to ask, her voice shaking. The woman, Sarah, explained through sobs how she had spent the last few years battling drug addiction, how she had searched for Mia in Chicago and finally tracked her down to Boston. "I know I don't deserve your forgiveness," Sarah said, "but I've changed. I'm clean now, and I want a chance to be your mother again." The silence that followed was heavy. Evelyn, who had come downstairs upon hearing the commotion, joined them, placing herself protectively beside Mia. "Mia is our daughter now," Evelyn said firmly. "We love her and care for her." Sarah nodded sadly. "I see that. She looks happy. Happier than I could ever have made her." Mia, who had been silent until then, finally spoke. "You abandoned me. I waited for you, day after day, at that train station." "I know, my love. And I regret it every day," Sarah replied, tears streaming down her face. Alex, who had been watching the scene with a heavy heart, finally intervened. Maybe we can talk about this calmly. Sarah, would you like to join us for some tea?" The offer surprised everyone, including Alex himself. But he knew that as painful as it was, Mia needed closure. The hours that followed were intense and emotional. Sarah shared her journey of recovery, her desperate searches for Mia, and her deep regret. Mia, in turn, spoke of her fears, her loneliness on the streets, and how the Carters had become her true family. Late that afternoon, as Sarah prepared to leave, Mia hugged her briefly. "I forgive you," she said softly, "but my home is here now." Sarah nodded in understanding. "You deserve all the happiness in the world, Mia, and I see you found it here." Before leaving, Sarah handed Mia a small box. These are some pictures of you as a baby. I thought you might like them. That night, sitting on her bed, Mia looked through the photos with Alex and Evelyn by her side. There were pictures of her, as a smiling baby, some of Sarah in happier days. Do you think it's okay for me to want to keep in touch with her? Mia asked hesitantly. Evelyn hugged Mia affectionately. Of course, dear. Sarah will always be a part of your story. And we will always be your family no matter what happens. Alex nodded. Family isn't just blood, Mia. It's love, it's choice. And we chose you just as you chose us. In the days that followed, the Carter mansion gradually returned to its Christmas routine. But something had changed. There was a new depth to the connection between Mia and her adoptive parents, a mutual understanding that transcended words. Christmas arrived, bringing with it the magic of Mia's first true family celebration. The mansion was filled with laughter, music, and the aroma of roasting turkey. Even Sarah was invited to join in for a brief moment during the festivities, a gesture of reconciliation and new beginnings. As she watched her family gathered around the Christmas tree, Alex playing on the floor with Theo, Evelyn helping Margot with the presents, and Michael serving hot chocolate to everyone, Mia felt a wave of gratitude so intense it nearly took her breath away. Her journey had been long and difficult, full of loss and challenges. But here, in this moment, she knew she had finally found her place in the world, a place of love, acceptance, and second chances. And as the snow fell softly outside, covering Boston with a magical glow, Mia made a silent promise to herself. She would always cherish this family that fate had given her, and would do everything in her power to return the love she had received. The future, which had once seemed so uncertain and frightening, now shone with endless possibilities. And Mia was ready to embrace it with all her heart. The months passed and spring arrived in Boston, bringing with it an explosion of color and new life. At the Carter mansion, the changing seasons reflected the transformations the family had undergone. Mia, now officially a Carter after the adoption process was finalized, was flourishing in her new life. Her grades in school were exemplary, and she had become a beloved figure among her peers and teachers. Her relationship with Sarah, though still delicate, was slowly evolving, with occasional visits and regular phone calls. On a sunny April morning, Alex gathered his family in the living room for an important announcement. "I've been thinking a lot about the future," he began, looking fondly at Evelyn, Mia, and little Theo. "About the legacy I want to leave for you and for the world." Everyone watched him curiously, even Margot, who had become a constant presence in the mansion. "I've decided to turn part of our property into a shelter for homeless children," Alex continued. "A place where they can find safety, education, and perhaps a chance at a new family, just like Mia found with us." The news was met with enthusiasm. Mia, in particular, was thrilled by the idea. "Can I help?" she asked eagerly. "I know what it's like to be out there alone. Maybe I can make a difference." Alex smiled proudly. "Of course you can, dear. In fact, I'd like you to be a key part of this project." The next few weeks were a whirlwind of activity. Architects were hired, plans were drawn, and a sizable portion of the Carter's land was designated for the new center. Mia spent hours with Alex, sharing her experiences and ideas about how to make the place truly welcoming for children who had only known the harshness of the streets. Evelyn, for her part, immersed herself in the educational aspect of the project, working with educators to develop programs to help children reintegrate into the school system. Even Margot got involved, using her connections in Boston society to drum up support and donations. While the project took shape, life in the mansion continued on its course. Theo took his first steps, filling the house with laughter and mischief. Mia followed closely behind him, an attentive and protective older sister. One afternoon, while overseeing construction at the shelter, Mia noticed a familiar figure watching from afar. It was Sarah, looking nervous and a little out of place. "Mom," Mia called, still getting used to using that term for two different people. "What are you doing here?" Sarah approached hesitantly. I heard about the project. I thought maybe I could help in some way. Mia was surprised but felt a rush of warmth in her chest. "Sure," she replied with a smile. "I'm sure Mom and Dad would be happy with your help." Together, mother and daughter walked through the construction site, with Mia excitedly explaining the plans for the center. Sarah listened intently, her eyes shining with a mixture of pride and a touch of regret for the time lost. When Alex met them later, he was momentarily surprised to see Sarah there, but when he noticed the positive interaction between her and Mia, he smiled and joined them, sharing more details about the project. As summer approached, the Carter Welcome Center began to take shape. It was a welcoming building with large windows that let in plenty of natural light, green spaces for playing and studying, and comfortable dormitories. On opening day, it seemed like all of Boston was in attendance. Politicians, local celebrities, and most importantly, dozens of children who would be the project's first beneficiaries. Mia, dressed elegantly but with her old scarf discreetly tied around her wrist like a bracelet, stood beside Alex as he cut the ribbon. Evelyn held Theo, who clapped excitedly without fully understanding what was happening. Margot and Sarah were in the front row, both with tears in their eyes, though for different reasons. "This center," Alex said in his speech, "is a symbol of hope and second chances. It is a promise to every child who has faced hardship that there is a bright future waiting for them, and none of it would be possible without the inspiration and courage of one very special little girl." He paused, looking proudly at Mia. "My daughter, Mia Carter." The applause was deafening. Mia, with tears in her eyes, hugged Alex and then Evelyn. In that moment, surrounded by her family, both blood and chosen, and seeing the fruit of their joint efforts, Mia felt an overwhelming happiness. As the first few children timidly entered the center, Mia approached them. "Welcome," she said with a warm smile. "I know exactly how you feel right now, but I can promise you one thing: things will get better. You are stronger than you think." That night, back at the Carter mansion, the family gathered on the porch watching the sunset. Theo slept peacefully in Evelyn's arms, while Mia snuggled between Alex and Margot. "You know," Alex said, breaking the contemplative silence, "when I lost Anna and my wife, I thought I would never be happy again, that this house would never know joy again. How wrong I was." Evelyn took his hand, smiling softly. "Sometimes life surprises us in the most wonderful ways." Maya looked at her family, at the mansion that was now truly home, and at the shelter visible in the distance. Her journey had been long and difficult, but each step had brought her to this perfect moment. "Thank you," she whispered, not just to her family, but to the universe that had guided her here. "For everything." And as the stars began to dot the night sky, the Carter family, a family formed not just by blood but by love, choice, and destiny, stood together, ready to face whatever challenges the future might bring. Together, they had transformed a story of loss and loneliness into a tale of hope, redemption, and unconditional love. 5 years have passed since the Carter shelter opened. The mansion, once a symbol of isolation and sadness, now pulsated with life and purpose. Mia, at 17, had transformed into a determined and compassionate young woman about to begin her college journey. It was a summer morning when Mia came down for breakfast to find the whole family gathered together. Alex, with a few extra gray hairs, smiled over his newspaper. Evelyn was making pancakes while Theo, now 6, chatted excitedly about his upcoming school year. "Good morning, family," Mia greeted, kissing each of them on the cheek. "Good morning, dear," Evelyn replied, placing a plate of pancakes in front of her. "Ready for the big day?" Mia nodded, a mix of anxiety and excitement on her face. Today was the day she would give a talk at the shelter, sharing her story with a new generation of children. After breakfast, the family headed downtown. On the way, they passed the tree where Mia had tied her old scarf years ago. The fabric, now faded with age, still swayed gently in the breeze, a silent reminder of her journey. The auditorium at the center was packed. Children of all ages, staff, and even some families who had adopted through the program were in attendance. Mia saw Sarah sitting quietly in the back of the room, a proud smile on her face. Taking a deep breath, Mia walked onto the stage. She looked at her family in the front row, Alex, Evelyn, Theo, Margot, and even Michael, and felt strengthened by their love and support. "Hello everyone," she began, her voice steady. "My name is Mia Carter, and a few years ago I was exactly where many of you are now." She told her story. The lonely days on the streets, the constant fear, the hunger. She talked about finding Theo and the courage it took to ask for help. She described how her life changed when she met the Carters and how love can come from the most unexpected sources. "But my story is not unique," she continued. "Each of you has a powerful story to tell. Each of you has unlimited potential." As she spoke, Mia noticed a girl in the front row, no older than she had been when she arrived at the Carter mansion. Her eyes shone with a mixture of hope and fear that Mia knew all too well. "There will be hard days," Mia admitted. "Days when you want to give up, but I promise you, it's worth it to keep fighting. Because there are people out there ready to love you, to believe in you. Sometimes the family we need isn't the one we were born into, but the one we find along the way." By the end of her speech, there wasn't a dry eye in the audience. The children applauded enthusiastically, many standing up to hug her as she stepped off the stage. The girl Mia had noticed approached timidly. Do you think I can also have a happy ending like you?" Mia knelt down to the girl's level. "What's your name?" "Sophia," the girl replied. "Well, Sophia," Mia smiled, placing a hand on her shoulder. "Not only do I think so, I'm certain. Your story is just beginning and you are the author of it. Never forget that." Later that day, back at the mansion, the family gathered in the garden for a celebratory picnic. Alex raised a glass in a toast. "To Mia," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "who taught us the true meaning of family and reminded us of the transformative power of love." Mia looked around at the smiling faces of her loved ones and felt a wave of gratitude so intense it nearly took her breath away. Her journey had been long and at times painful, but each step had brought her to this perfect moment. As the sun set over the horizon, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, Mia reflected on the path that had brought her here. From a scared little girl on the streets of Boston to a confident young woman about to start college. From someone with nothing but an old scarf to someone surrounded by love and purpose. The Carter shelter would continue to change lives, just as hers had been changed. And Mia knew that no matter where life took her, she would always have a home to return to, a family that loved her unconditionally. As night fell and the first stars began to shine in the sky, Mia made a silent promise to herself. She would continue the story that began that cold winter morning all those years ago. She would continue to spread hope, to believe in second chances, and to show the world that love in all its forms has the power to heal and transform. And so, as the Carter family gathered in a warm embrace beneath the starry sky, the circle was complete. A story of loss and loneliness had become one of hope, redemption, and unconditional love. And Mia, the girl who once had nothing but courage and an old scarf, now had the whole world of possibilities before her, and a family to support her every step of the way.